Welcome to the Candace's Pack Dog Rescue Show with your host, JP Mendoza.
What's up, everyone? Thank you very much for checking out this bonus episode of the Candace's Pack Dog Rescue Show. So Rene Tollinchi from Yo Adrian Dog Training, based out of Queens, New York, recently told me he's been getting a lot of inquiries from clients who are asking for help after rescuing a dog. So he invited me on his Instagram Live to talk about common mistakes people make even before choosing a dog. So listen in as the tables are turned. He's interviewing me mostly. We speak about my early days of learning dog psychology. We also went into detail about the rescue mission and the story that inspired it. Keep in mind this is an Instagram Live, so the audio quality isn't exactly the best, but I think it is manageable. You can go ahead and follow Rene on Instagram at yoadrian.dogtraining. Hope you enjoy. How's it going, Rene? How are you?
I am good. It's snowing. Just got back from walking the dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about the weather over there and how it affects your dog training. Like, how does it affect your routine, not only with your own dogs, but with clients you might have?
Oh, so actually, it does. I mean, well, first it makes I wouldn't say difficult. It adds more pressure on the dogs for distractions, right? So having the snow is like, they want to eat it, they want to, they want to smell on it, they want to mark it.
Yeah.
So that can prove a little bit more of a challenge. I know for some of my beginner owners, it's been a little difficult to navigate because then you're also limited on what you can do in options, right? So like, if you have dogs that are reactive, you can't avoid that much because there's only so far you can go on a city block while there's like a mountain of snow.
Right.
In terms of like routine with our dogs and like boarding, I like it because it actually helps with confidence building. I'll have them walk on the snow. So they're kind of like, what's this unstable surface? And I'm guiding them through it. Then they have the unpredictability of like the surface crashing down. So they're kind of like, oh, is this okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's all okay. But in terms of like walks and stuff like that, I keep it exactly the same. It's just
perfect.
Now there's snow now.
Yeah. We just moved down from New Jersey, so I know all about walking dogs in the snow. Luckily, my dog never really had a big problem. She's an insecure back of the pack dog, but snow never really fazed her. She was always just like, oh, what's this? And then she's like, all right. And then she would just kind of do the high step, in the snow. And then eventually she would just kind of get used to it and just play in it, especially if there was another dog around or something. So never had to worry too much about it, just when it was really cold out. Yeah.
Because you got to make sure with the salt in the floor and the booties and
yeah. Especially, we were always lucky because the moment we put those little booties on her, some dogs fight it and they'll try to take it off or they won't walk with it. They'll freeze. She was always really good. She just kind of just adjusted, and then now it's like normal.
Do you miss the snow now that you're down there?
Not at all. Absolutely not. That's one of the biggest reasons we came down here, brother.
Really?
Yeah. For those watching that don't know, I'm in Gainesville, Florida, and we mostly, I joke around, but we mostly moved down here because of my wife's job. So it's a little bit of an adjustment only because it's North Florida, so it's a little bit colder here in the winter months. But if I told you what cold was, you'd probably laugh at me.
What is cold?
Last week, every morning it was probably about 31, 32. That's funny, right?
Yeah.
I have no right to complain.
That's sweater weather.
Yeah, exactly. But the craziest part is it'll start around 30, 31 degrees, and by 11 a.m. it'll be in the 60s. So yeah,
that's a difference.
I know, it's crazy. And there's no snow, so I'll take it every day.
I would take that. I'll take that over the snow.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a few people here, like on my viewers, that are not necessarily aware. So I thought maybe we can spend this time introducing yourself. Since you
well, real quick, I
I'm actually shocked we have 8 viewers because nobody here must be football fans.
I guess not.
I just realized, like, I'm not much of a football fan, so I just realized, like, a few minutes ago that, oh, the Super Bowl is today. So I was like, oh, man, this guy's going to get the lowest ratings of all time of any IG Live he's ever done. But no, there's already 8 people here. That's good.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy about that, too.
Yeah, yeah. You asked for a quick introduction. So I'm JP. I'm the founder of Candace's Pack Dog Rescue. My wife and I rescued our dog about almost 7 years ago now, and it's a long story, but to put it in a nutshell, basically I had an idea in my mind of what my dog was going to be like before, everything in my head, I had it all planned out. She was going to be this happy-go-lucky dog that was going to play fetch all day, and we were going to go off-leash walking, and she was going to always stay around me, and it was just like going to be the perfect match, perfect relationship. Well, we ended up making all the mistakes. We ended up rescuing her from an online rescue website, and this online rescue website was out of state, so we didn't ever get the chance to meet her before we rescued her. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, okay, well, why not, right? So it's going to be a perfect dog, right? So why not? When she came to us, she's a sweetheart, but she was afraid of everything. And I didn't know how to have a dog like that. I had no idea about dog behavior. I mean, we always had family dogs, and our family dogs were very middle of the pack, just chill dogs, didn't require a lot of maintenance. I didn't really go on long walks with them. So I had this idea in my head of what being a dog owner was like. So I also used to work as a vet tech at an animal hospital in New Jersey. So I used to see both extremes. I would see our family dogs being very well behaved, and then I would see client dogs coming into the vet acting a fool in the exam room or in the back, because most of the time they're really scared or nervous. We're poking and prodding and trying to cut their nails and things like that. So I thought, oh, there's no way my dog would be like that. Just totally naive, totally ignorant. So when we got our dog, it was a done deal. There was no taking the dog back. It was, she came from, I think, South Carolina, and we drove over to we drove over to Maryland. That was the meeting point, and she had several fosters on the way over. So we got her, and she, like I said, she's a sweetheart dog, brought her home, and she was afraid of me. She didn't really open up to me for a while. She was very unsure of her environment. She didn't know how to walk on a leash. She just didn't know how to trust people. And we sort of had a backstory on her, but we didn't really know what to believe. And it was very unclear because it wasn't a one owner type of thing. And we didn't know if there was any abuse involved or anything like that. So I think right off the bat, we ended up feeling sorry for her, which was another mistake. And that didn't help her. It didn't help her. It didn't help her behavior. And I didn't know what was going on. And it was causing me anxiety because now I have a dog that's, anxious, nervous. I have to go to work. She's, separation anxiety in the crates, and I didn't know what to do. So we ended up calling a behaviorist. And when she came over, she was basically focusing more on us than she was on our dog, because she was explaining to us how our behavior is not helping her behavior. And my mind was blown. I was like, what are you talking about, lady? I was like, what are you talking about? I thought you were going to come over and fix my dog. Yeah. But it didn't work that way. And she was over for a few hours, and I learned a lot. But, I'm the type of person that once I get interested in something, I really try to dive deep in it. And I wanted to make this work. I didn't want to give up on my dog. And neither did my wife. So I had to figure it out. And when our behaviorist explained to us that there are several things you can do, exercises, your own confidence, your own self-confidence, your own mental state, simple things you can do. You don't have to be, you don't have to be able to do all these crazy obedience tricks. You just have to be confident. That's the first step to helping your insecure dog. So once I started I got a taste of the dog psychology world, I wanted to know more. Like I really, really bothered her a lot with the text messages and the emails and phone calls. And eventually I had to just, go to different sources so that I can just learn as much as I could. And fast forward 6-7 years later, I took it upon myself to not only help my dog, but to try to help other insecure dogs. And not only insecure dogs, but I work at a place now that does behavior rehabilitation.
Nice.
So I wanted to expand my knowledge. I want to be like, okay, well, if the dog is not insecure, but they're leash reactive, I don't have experience with leash reactive dogs. So what do you do then? What do you do if a dog has a bite history? My dog doesn't bite humans. She runs away from them. So I really wanted to open my world up. So it gave me the opportunity to not only learn things on the dog psychology side, but also on the rescue side, because I want to be able to help other dogs so that they don't end up back in shelters, or somebody might not have a good experience with a rescue because they got a dog thinking that the dog will be one way because you see it in one environment, and then you bring the dog home, and then maybe you feel sorry for the dog, and then now you're creating more of the same cycle, right? So I think it's all about the relationship between dog and human, and keeping it harmonious so that the human knows what's going on and the human is happy and confident, so that the dog can be confident that the human has things in control. And I just want to provide the education and do the dog rescue part along with the education. And the training part, I was really more my idea for me to be hands-on, because I think that in the rescue world, and I don't want to say that my way is the only way to do it, but because a lot of rescues mean well, but they don't have the resources, or they don't have the structure to be able to do what I'm doing. So my idea basically is to rescue a group of dogs and then just create as much balance in the pack that I can, adopt them out one by one, and replace the ones that I adopt with another shelter dog. So in theory, the other dogs that I have already have been working on for a few weeks or months, they're more in a balanced state, and they can help me with the new shelter dog, and maybe the new shelter dog can get a more sense of how to be without being anxious or nervous or aggressive or anything. And I have not yet put everything into place, but I'm working in baby steps because I don't want to take on more than I can chew. And it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, that's basically me and my mission and what I've been doing up until this point.
No, so I wouldn't say it was long-winded.
Okay.
I've heard the first teaser of your podcast. I did watch you and Gonz live. That's, for those who don't know, that's how we got introduced. Gonzo Kami Canine. He's probably in the comments right now. He's my brother.
What's up, Gonz?
Yeah, what's up, Gonz? It was good to hear it in a little bit more detail, especially for people who are not necessarily aware of your story, because there was a lot that you put in there that I was like, I'm so thankful I invited him to do this live.
Yeah, and I was going to save this to the end, but my first interview airs tomorrow. It's actually midnight tonight, but it's going to be released tomorrow on your major podcast app. Yes. And I interviewed the woman who introduced me to dog psychology, my original behaviors. She was a beast to get on. She's a very busy woman and has a lot going on. It took a lot to secure her, but once I got it, I knew it made the most sense to have her on as my first interview guest. So a lot of your questions will be answered in more detail, because she has a very good memory, and she goes into that first consultation and what her impression of me was, her first impression, and what her impression of Candace was, and it's a pretty personal look into a time in history. But I'm really excited to share it, because I hope people can listen to the story and take an example of mistakes to not make when they go out and try to find a dog. Maybe it's not a good idea to go to a rescue website just because you like the breed. You know what I mean? So I didn't go too much into it, but when I was a vet tech, there was a dog that would come in for boarding all the time, and she was a German short hair pointer. And I loved her demeanor. She was a sweetheart. I mean, she was one of my favorite dogs that came in. And my idea was, oh, you know what? One day I'm going to have a German short hair pointer just like her. You know what I mean? And it's just funny to say it because, you know, obviously now every dog is different and there are no same personalities even within the breed. So I like to tell the story because I think so many people have that misconception that if they get a certain breed, they will have a certain personality type, and it just doesn't work that way. And my story, I think, is a perfect example of how you can get bit if you have these preconceived notions about a breed or a dog, and you bring them home, and then you don't have the right education to make the relationship work. And that's basically the story behind the inspiration behind the podcast and the rescue. So Candace has inspired a lot out of me over the last few years.
Well, that I'm definitely excited to listen to now. Like I was excited before, but I'm even more excited now.
That's awesome. It's just to put it in full disclosure. Like this is still weird to me to like put all of myself out there to people who like I know people who are going to be listening to it, but I know that there's like also strangers that I've never met that's going to be listening to me talk. It's just still a weird thought. It's still even weird just kind of recording myself doing some of the voiceover work because it feels like I'm only doing it for myself. But now like hearing you say you're excited to hear it and stuff, it's just really cool to know that like all the work that I'm putting into it is being appreciated by other people. So it's exciting for me to see what people think. I can't wait to hear some of the feedback that I get. Hopefully people will send me some DMs or emails or something.
Well, as soon as I listen to it, you're definitely going to hear from me.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Because we're like in the same, I guess, similar, right? Like I've had this platform for about, I want to say about a year or two now. So like even then, like I'll get clients, like potential clients who would message me and say, oh, that video that you did on Instagram, like made me want to message you. And I'm like, I really didn't feel like I was doing anything but training the dog and I have a camera. Like that's what it feels like.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So the people that messaged you after they saw your video on Instagram, did they just find you by chance, or were they local people and they just messaged you because you were in their area, or like how did they find you? Did you ever find that out? Because I need more local people to find me here. Like no, we've only been here about 7 months. So eventually I'm going to need like volunteers and people to know that I exist so that they can come to me for a dog one day. So that's one of those things that's on my to-do list is just trying to get more out there and get more attention locally.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I would get a mix of both, right? So one advantage is that I only moved from one borough to another borough versus moving like a whole other state. But it was word of mouth. So like a lot of the clients that were satisfied with working with me have recommended me to others. The other half was people who would directly find me because they would go into like their Instagram or their Facebook and type in specifically where I was located. Cool. So I would put like Queens dog trainer or like at the time I was Harlem dog trainer, and there wasn't that many people who had that hashtag. So I figured if somebody was looking for me locally and said Harlem, I would be the one that came up the most. So that kind of helped. So I hope that
that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's good. That's good to know. Good tips. Because to be honest with you, the way that I ended up working where I work now is I typed in, because in Gainesville, Florida, I don't know if you're familiar, if you've ever been, but it's a very small college town. So other than the college and the major hospital here, there's not really that much going on. So when I typed in, I knew I needed to find a trainer that I could shadow that at least mentions dog psychology, because I know how important it is. And you know, a lot of people have a lot of opinions on it, but I helped my dog through basics and fundamentals of dog psychology. So that's just the kind of trainer that I wanted to learn more from. And when I typed in like Gainesville dog psychology behaviorist or Gainesville dog trainer, I would find, you know, doggy daycares and, obedience training and like off leash training. And it just wasn't what I was looking for. And I ended up finding the guy that I work with now because a friend of mine, a friend of ours, saw his sign in front of his house, and I went to go check out the sign, and it said canine behavior rehabilitation, and I said, okay, that's already a good start, good choice of words. I looked them up on the website, and it's talks about dog psychology all over the place. So I don't know if he had his his Google results, his search results set up or anything where he comes up when you type in all those words. But I was really glad that I found him because I haven't been able to find any other trainer locally that at least mentions dog psychology on their website. So I got really lucky. I got really fortunate when it comes to that. So.
No, that's actually good to know because I never thought about like adding that to any of the hashtags that I do. Because I do agree with you on how important behavior and understanding how the dog learns, thinks, and grows and all that other stuff matters to training and coexisting with your dog. Because even when I started off, so I started at a box chain store. And it really was just like you put a treat to a dog's nose and you put it into a sit and then hold on, Adrian's like walking around. I'm gonna knock over my tripod. My bad.
So Adrian is your dog?
Yes, Adrian.
All right. See, I finally got an answer to my question. I was wondering if you were a huge Rocky fan.
Yes, I am.
You are a huge Rocky fan. Okay, and that's how you named your dog Adrian. And that's how your business is named, Yo Adrian Dog Training.
Exactly.
All right, finally, I finally have the answers to all my questions. Thank you. I can leave now. See ya.
To be honest with you, that comes up a lot just because everybody thinks that my name is Adrian because of it. But really how I came up with the name was because I always said that every Rocky needs an Adrian. So I knew that when I went into the relationship with her, she wasn't going anywhere, was sticking all the way to the end. We're going the distance. This is my partner in crime.
Sure.
And even when I end my sessions, like after we're done training, I always look at her and I'm like, "Yo, Adrian, we did it." And then so
that's awesome.
I'm a big Rocky fan. I'm a little cheesy, but I like that. That we have that bond. And stuff like
yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
well, I'm a huge boxing and MMA fan. So of course I'm.
Also, who's your favorite boxer? I gotta know that.
My favorite boxer? Geez, that's a hard question. I mean, are we talking alive and active today? Are we talking of all time? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. I'll go with all time to make it a little easier.
I really enjoy watching guys like Pernell Whitaker and Roy Jones. So two totally different fighters. Pernell Whitaker for his defensive skills. The defensive skills were off the chart. It was like he was dancing in the ring, and guys couldn't catch him. And Roy Jones Jr. just because he was just phenomenal with his unorthodox attacks. And then, of course, Mike Tyson. I got to say Mike Tyson.
I don't think you can have a conversation about boxing and not mention Tyson. Tyson's personally my favorite.
Yeah. He's a great for sure.
Yeah, I for me personally, it's the nostalgia of it too, because my dad, he used to take us to go see the fights, right? So they used to have this big projector on the wall, and he took us in one time, and I distinctly remember this, that we went and we was watching, and Tyson comes out. My dad's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get a hot dog." I was like, "Cool." They come out. You already know, ding ding, fight's over. He comes back with the hot dog. He's like, I paid $50 for this. And he packed us up and we went home. And I was like, damn, that was it.
Yeah. My dad used to have that black box from back in the day. That old school cable box that used to be fixed up. Yeah, so I would just go over his house and watch the fights because I didn't have to pay $50 to watch it.
So what you would call it? I did want to talk about a little bit more about the things that you were discussing before when it came down to preconceived perceptions, because when you started talking about it, I was like, wow, this is part of why I invited you on. And the reason why was because recently we've been getting a lot of clients who have rescue dogs or dogs that they rescued or adopted, foster dogs, stuff like that. Whereas before I would get a lot of like puppies, like people who purchase puppies from either like mills or they would get it from a breeder. So, training is very different, I think, in my opinion. Not the way you teach the dog, but what you prioritize, behaviors, stuff like that. So you had mentioned that a lot of that stuff, like when your behaviorist came over, started having this discussion about like you as an individual and your relationship with your dog and how that affected your dog. I did want to ask, what would you say was the biggest thing that affected you and Candace's relationship?
Well, first of all, my anxiety to want to fix her issues, that was the first thing she told me. Like, listen, dude, you gotta shape up and you gotta be the confident leader that she needs you to be. So when I realized that my worry about her issues wasn't helping her, that's when I said, okay, you know what? I got to do everything I need to do to really make this work. It wasn't about just calling up the best behaviors I can find and paying the fee and then having her fix my dog. It was not about that. It was about how can I have a relationship with my dog on an everyday basis and do the things to where she sees me as a confident leader so that she doesn't have to worry about things that make her anxious. So I think a lot of people, and I see it all the time where I work now, people drop the dog off because their dog has an issue and they expect us to fix the problem. And then 6 weeks later, they come back and they say, okay, great, is my dog fixed? Well, it's like, wait, hold on. It doesn't work that way. Like we gotta teach you, like, what is the home environment like? What are you doing? Are you anxious? Are you a high energy person? Is your energy rubbing off on your dog the wrong way? The dog might be very, very sensitive, and something that you do might be too much for her or him. So we have to explain the behaviors that we might do that set us back as a dog owner, right? So if I'm gonna get very frustrated at my dog and just yell at her because I'm taking basically my frustration out on her, well, what confident leader do you know just yells and berates and throws temper tantrums, right? That's not what a confident leader does.
Yeah.
So I had to, and I don't want to make it sound like this was an overnight change. It took a while for me to realize, like, okay, there are certain things that make me anxious. I need to either stop doing that or change the way I do something. So one of the things that really helped me was structure. So the structure of knowing what time to take her out for a walk every morning, knowing how much time I had when we came back so that I can feed her. That way I can get ready, not be late for work, which would add more stress to the morning. You see what I'm saying? So it was more about creating a routine and learning how to take her out on walks so that she would be good on a leash and not be so reactive to noises. And here was another thing too. So not only did I have to teach her how to walk on a leash nicely, but the fact that there would be, trucks going by didn't help me because she's reacted to like loud noises like that. Trucks, maybe car horns, anything loud, right? So I had to learn how to not anticipate those things and be like, oh, here we go. There's another dog. Should I cross the street? Now I'm worrying about it. You know what I mean? So what I really focused on was if a truck went by or if a loud muffler went by, I would just stop and just wait. And then maybe she would probably, freak out a little bit, maybe have a little bit of a panic attack, but I would just wait. I wouldn't move. I would just stay there until she calmed down a little bit. And they'd be like, okay, that's it. And it would just keep walking. Like, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. I wouldn't mark the event so that it was memorable for her. I wanted to just keep going or just stop, breathe. Nothing's going on. I'm just standing here looking on my phone, she's freaking out, but it's just a matter of time before she realizes there's really nothing to worry about. And again, like I said, it was not overnight. This took a few years, actually. It took a few years to get, I realized what was required of me faster than it took her to realize certain things about, getting over anxieties. But that just came with time. It came with time and exposing her to a lot of things that she probably hadn't been exposed to. So for example, swimming. I had no idea if she had any kind of experience swimming. I don't know. Let's find out. So I found a place. I found a place in New Jersey, and I saw Cesar Millan do it 1,000 times on Dog Whisperer, on bringing a dog into the pool. And I said, okay, I can do that. We found a place. I think it was in Jersey City, and paid for the hour because it was the only place around that allowed you to do an hour session with your dog, to actually go in the pool with them. And she was scared at first, but I had already, a couple years in, I had already had that demeanor of, okay, she's panicking, I'm not panicking. So I let her in the pool. I actually have this on video, it's one of my favorite videos. But I let her in the pool, and nothing bad happened. So it was just one of those things where, yeah, she's not a water dog. She doesn't love the pool. She'll never be one of those dogs that just darts towards the pool and dives in. But she knows at least that was a fear that she could get over with my help. So like, I call it leadership points, right? So I felt like I gained a lot of leadership points that day because I helped her get through an obstacle, and there was no panic involved on my part. So it was a few years of that, and just being consistent and just trying to learn as much as I could and trying new things. I've made a lot of mistakes, Rene, seriously. I've made a lot of mistakes, but you learn from your mistakes, and yeah. And, 7 years later, there are a lot of things that she used to be afraid of, and she's not anymore. She might not ever be a dog where she's just 100% confident. I think she's a natural back of the pack dog, but at least she knows that we have a lot of things under control, So another long-winded answer, but
no, it was good because that's one of those things that I feel like when I have a conversation with owners, especially ones that have had dogs for a while, or dogs that they just relatively got, they usually perceive them as like, this is just the dog. So, hearing you talk about your journey with Candace and, becoming that leader for her, stepping up to that plate, devoting yourself to it, being consistent, and how that's proven over time to build a better bond with you is what I always try to explain to owners, but they may not have the foresight to see because, they're kind of like, well, my dog's been like this for this long. Of course, they're just going to be like this. Or they may look at it as, well, the dog came this way, so it's obviously that's it. And I think that's also where we stem off with that perception that, dogs that are in rescues or in shelters are like damaged good dogs. Like you can't fix them. You're kind of I'm not saying that you're supposed to fix them. There's nothing broken about them. But what I mean is that there is things that we can modify and improve and go over. So even as us as humans, right? Like you had mentioned before about, having to deal with your own personal anxieties and dealing with the things in your life and how that's affected your dog, and to look at you as more of a confident leader, pretty sure helped you get better with your own personal life, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
For sure. I mean, just learning how to be in everyday life without having to worry about things that you can't control, right? If you're worrying about things you can't control, then you're just going to always be in a constant state of anxiety. So, it really is no point to that. So, learning that and just kind of putting it into practice is two different things, because you can say it and it sounds really easy to do, but then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to miss my bus, I'm going to miss my train, and I'm going to be late to the airport. You know what I mean? So it's so easy for us to fall back into that, but at least being aware and catching it, and then stopping it and taking a minute to breathe and then say, okay, it's going to be all right. I got this, you know what I mean? Or it'll just work out. It'll be all fine, and not freak out, not panic. I think it's key. I think it's important. And even if you don't have a dog, you should be doing that.
Yes, definitely.
You know?
Because I was gonna say, like, when it comes down to it, that's like, there's a lot of different discussions, like when it comes down to like the role you play, right? Like, a lot of people get into the semantics of like fur mom and pet parent and alpha and pack leader and all that other stuff. But the fact of the matter is that when you have a dog that, and I think you would agree, that was given up on, or like put in a situation where they were allowed to live on their own, or put into a shelter, when they come into your home, you have to prove yourself as someone that they should respect and seek guidance from. And if we are in a situation like you once were, I was with my first dog, where we kind of like submit will to the dog and let the dog run the show, then they're never going to look at us in that way. Because in their mind, it's like, well, I get scared, and since I'm scared because you're scared, and now that's scary, everything's scary, then they're just always going to be in this, perpetuate state of fear, right? So like by going and saying like, hey, the structure, for example, like, hey, this is when you're going to eat, this is when you're going to sleep, this is where you're going to sleep, this is, when we're going to play, and this is when we're going to do that. It helps ease the dog's anxieties, because in their mind it's like, oh, so you got it. So if you got it, why am I worried? And if you're not worried, I'm not worried, then everything's good, and then everything becomes that good. Like, when it comes down to like working with Adrian, when I first got her, she was, they said, they don't know her history, but they assumed that she was a breeding dog that either they left astray or got out. And when I got her, she didn't care about humans. She was not like that dog. Like, she was always just like, what's going on over there? She didn't even care about dogs. She was just more like, everything's more interesting. But it wasn't until I started giving her those things, like, like good food and like, a good structured walk, and teaching her what I expected of her and where I wanted her to be and where I wanted her to like sleep and poop and do all that. She was just like, oh, okay, everything's cool. So now 2 years later, when we're doing off leash walks, it's just like, we're just chilling. We're just like hanging out, doing our thing. And like, all that's kind of like a lot further behind than what it was like in the foresight, So what would you say, like, because I was meaning to ask, what was the best advice that you got in terms of rehabilitating Candace?
The best advice. Well, not to repeat just because I think it's important, but I think the best advice I got was just to be a more confident person. Okay. So being, I think Cesar Millan is the one who said it, where dogs know if you're faking it. You can't just act like you're a leader, and because they can tell by your energy. And I think a lot of people don't really, I think they underestimate what a dog knows or what a dog can feel from their environment. Because if you leave a pack of stray dogs out and there's no human influence, there's got to be a way that they navigate their environment and navigate around the world. So they know who to follow, they know who to avoid, they know danger, they know how to survive, basically.
Yeah.
So you're basically taking that into your home environment. And if you take a dog that has no relationship with you, then you have to establish that relationship and be like, hey, buddy, so I'm the leader of this house and I got this. Don't worry about anything. But we can't talk to them and tell them that. We have to show them that through our actions, because they don't understand. I mean, it doesn't matter how many words you teach your dog and how many tricks you teach your dog with verbal commands. They don't really understand what it is you're saying. So it's the body language, it's the energy that basically tells them how to react to their environment. And it's like my example earlier when I was saying it, if you just get frustrated and you just yell at your dog because they misbehaved or they went somewhere where they're not supposed to go, instead of being frustrated and angry, because it's not an emotion that they're going to follow. You're right. A confident leader doesn't follow those emotions. So you have to be like, okay, nope, and then show them where they should be instead of where they are, or don't allow them to make those decisions in the first place. have a place for them to be, or have that routine so that they know where they should be at that time of the day. So for example, like in the morning, my dog knows, all right, she comes out of the crate. Eventually, we're going to go for a walk in a few minutes after I get dressed or whatever. And then we go out for a walk, come back. She knows it's time for feeding. And then after that, I take her to work with me or come back from work, and she knows that it's crate time for a few hours in the afternoon. And I'm taking the guesswork out is basically what I'm saying. If you take the guesswork out of somebody, out of the situation with a dog, then how could they not feel more comfortable knowing what's coming up next? Because it's like that unknown that can create anxiety. It's a real crazy thing when you really think about it, right? It's us as humans, and we have the advantage of high intelligence as a species, right? But we're coexisting with a different species, a dog. If you really think about it, it's amazing. It's amazing that all dogs don't just want to break out of our houses every day and be like, I don't know why you're trying to keep me in this box. I'm going to go outside where I can just, live free. But they don't want to do that because, I mean, I like to think that most dog owners are good owners, and they provide the food, they provide the shelter, they provide the water, and a dog knows, oh, well, this is my home. I'm not in charge. The owner is, but hey, that's I don't need to be in charge. My life is good. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to do what I'm told or what's expected of me, and live a good life. And hopefully, by providing the education, we can teach more people to live a better life with their dog or have a better relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up, because it's something that I definitely tell my clients all the time, where it was like, I call it I like to caveman train sometimes, where it's like all I had was a rope and a dog. Like, how do I work this dog, right? Because we could get into like the tools and methodologies and do all that other stuff. But I always looked at it as there was a way to do it before all that. Like, how did we do that? And knowing what we know now, how do I make that better, right? So when I'm, working with a client, I always say, so if you remove the four walls and the door, would the dog want to stay next to you? And it's a good question, because that tells you about your relationship. When I first had my first dog, Zero, if I even gave a little leash, he was out. Like, he was just gone. Like, there was no getting this dog back, right? So, with my next dog, the first thing I put in my mind was, okay, I got to see what was in that relationship that made my dog want to just not be next to me, versus this dog who I want to be with me all the time. So, going into working with Adrian, that was the first thing I did. I just taught her recall. I was like, okay, if the leash ever drops, I need you to come back. So how do I get you back each time? And I think that, when you have experience with dogs, because that was the question I wanted to follow up with, was since you started on this journey of training, what changed the most about your perception? I know that you said that before you thought that it was going to be this happy-go-lucky dog, but when was it that moment that you was like, no, that's not the case. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So when I mentioned earlier about how hungry I was for knowledge after I had met our trainer, I wanted to learn as much as I could without bothering her so much about, asking a million questions. So I started watching a lot of Dog Whisperer, and I started reading a lot of Caesar's books. I read all of his books. And one thing that I read in one of his books really resonated with me. It was when he was Are you familiar with any of his books? Have you ever read any of them?
I haven't read all of them. I saw that. I saw your Instagram post with all of them on it, though.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So you might be familiar, because he might mention this in all of his books, is that dogs are born into a specific pack position. And if you have a natural back of the pack dog, it's not that your dog is a bad dog. It's not that your dog is damaged. It's that there's a purpose for those back of the pack dogs. There's a purpose for those middle of the pack dogs. There's a purpose for those front dogs. And the back of the pack dogs are the nervous, more sensitive ones, and they're the ones that make the noise, or they're the ones that alert the pack to some pending danger that might be behind them. And when I realized that when I thought about that, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, because Candace is super fearful and reactive to a lot of things.
Hold on 1 second. Lee just came home. I got literate. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for listening to the Candace's Pack Dog Rescue Show. For news updates and training tips, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us at Candace's Pack Dog Rescue. If you would like to support the rescue, please visit our website at cpackdogrescue.org. For questions and comments, you can contact us at cpackdogrescue@gmail.com. And if you like the show, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your podcast app.